how many Matchroom fighters have left to join Ben Shalom and Sky at this point? The first couple I remember were Josh Kelly and Huey Fury, I think. And I can't imagine Eddie Hearn lost much sleep over those two because Huey Fury really doesn't sell many tickets. He doesn't have a particularly exciting style. There aren't many fighters out there who really want to fight him, not because they're afraid, but because he doesn't bring much to the table commercially. And also, I have to imagine that Eddie Hearn didn't think Huey Fury was going to be winning world titles anytime soon. And as far as Josh Kelly, ever since he lost to David Avanesian, he's pretty much faded off into obscurity. So, as I say, I can't imagine Eddie Hearn was particularly concerned about those two leaving. But since that time, you've also had the likes of Chris Billum-Smith, Liam Smith, Joseph Parker, who's a former world heavyweight champion, and now potentially Lawrence Okolie also leaving. So if there's any more, you might as well call it an exodus. You've also had a number of top GB amateurs turning over pro, and the majority of them seem to have signed with Sky and Ben Shalom. I'm not sure how many of them signed with Frank Warren, but not many have gone with Matchroom. So the question has to be asked, what's going on here? And the other question is Eddie Hearn underpaying his fighters? And the reason I asked the second question is because of Lawrence Okolie coming out with some interesting tweets insinuating that Eddie Hearn is some type of slave master or plantation owner. You've also had Derek Chisora following his fight against Kubrat Pulev in the ring saying that Eddie Hearn needs to start paying him some proper money. Now, I don't know whether Derek Chisora was just trying to wind Eddie Hearn up because he likes to put him on the spot and see him embarrassed. He thinks it's funny, or whether there was actually some truth there in jest. Now, when it comes to paying fighters, underpaying them, overpaying them, it's all a matter of perspective. Because if a promoter such as Ben Shalom wants to pay Liam Smith, let's say double what Eddie Hearn's paying him, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just using this as a arbitrary figure and an example. If Shalom wanted to pay Liam Smith double what Eddie Hearn's paying him, then clearly he thinks that he's getting value because he's trying to bolster his stable and he's making a long-term investment. See, people look at a fighter and what he gets paid and they tend to focus on the short term. But from a network's perspective or from a promoter's perspective, they're looking much further down the road. They're seeing this fighter as part of a bigger picture. You see, it's not just about whether they can recoup the money they spend on that fighter. It's also about building a stable which is significant in size so that it encourages other fighters to sign with them, like a snowball effect. Because when you've got a new outfit like Boxer, there may not be the confidence, and I'm talking about in terms of the way fighters feel about Ben Shalom and Boxer. They might not have the same confidence in Ben Shalom yet as they have in name brand promoters like Eddie Hearn. So the more fighters sign with Ben Shalom and Boxer, the more other fighters are going to be interested, especially when they hear the kind of money that they're dishing out. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Ben Shalom and Sky are overpaying fighters, because this is how Eddie Hearn describes it. Because it all comes down, as I say, to a matter of perspective. They think that they're going to get value. The only way to really tell whether you've overpaid a fighter is long after the fact. Maybe when you're no longer working with a fighter, when your relationship has come to an end, then you can look back in retrospect and say, actually, we overpaid this guy because we never got our money back, or we never made a profit with this guy. So, that's what I'll say about that. Now, Eddie Hearn says that he used to, quote unquote, overpay fighters when he first was helping to launch the Zone in the US. And this is because they had to attract the talent. It was the same with PBC. When they first entered the market, they were paying fighters insane sums for routine title defenses and all this kind of thing. And again, it's to draw fighters to their stable. So I don't necessarily think that Eddie Hearn is underpaying fighters per se. I think now Eddie Hearn is paying fighters in line with what he expects to make on a show-by-show basis. That's what he's doing. He is no longer following the old DAZN model where they're paying out huge sums to attract the talent. Now they're at a stage, I guess, where they feel like their stable is big enough and they've got enough talent. Now they want to make the most out of it. Now they want to actually see a return, particularly with the owner of DAZN or Access Industries in Len Blavatnik having to inject billions of dollars into the company to cover their debts. I did speak about this in a video a couple months back. He's not going to be happy to keep on injecting all this money into the business. He's going to want to see some return. And therefore, the days of paying fighters these huge sums when they may not necessarily be able to recoup from the shows is over, at least in the majority of cases. So from a fighter's perspective, if you are a Liam Smith, a Joseph Parker, a Lawrence Okolie, a Chris Billam-Smith, yeah, you might see it as Eddie Hearn is underpaying you because look what Sky and Boxer are offering. But as I say, it's just a matter of perspective. Eddie Hearn is trying to make a profit off his shows now, whereas it would seem that Ben Shalom and Sky are willing to take a big hit on their shows just in order to build up their stable in the short term. Now, Eddie Hearn in several interviews has said he understands why fighters are leaving and that they're being offered a lot more money than Matchroom are willing to pay them. And in those situations, he doesn't begrudge fighters leaving and going to join the competition. But as I said in a previous video, the Lawrence Okolie situation seems to be a little bit different. There seems to be, based upon the interviews I've watched, a mix-up in terms of how many fights Lawrence Okolie or his lawyers believed he had left on his contract versus what Eddie Hearn is saying is the case in terms of how many fights Okolie has left on his contract. And I speculated that it could have been a situation where Lawrence Okolie saw Matchroom release other fighters before their contract had ended. And maybe he thought he could try the same thing. And when Matchroom were not forthcoming, he decided to put up that tweet saying Eddie Hearn is a ... and then the picture of Leonardo DiCaprio's plantation owner character, right? So you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Does Eddie Hearn underpay his fighters? And obviously, if you're talking about the top Eddie Hearn fighters, the answer has to be no. But I'm talking about the stable in general, not just the Anthony Joshuas and maybe even and that's another person who could potentially be leaving is Dylan White, right? But since Dylan White has been with Matchroom, he's made good money and what have you. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about all the points I've raised in this video.